Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to episode 140 of Making It with me, your host, Terry Woolman. I really appreciate you joining us every week, and I'd like to start off by thanking Blue Microphones for their technical support. And I hope you find my recent conversations with artists Osnoy, Boney James, Gino Vanelli, Tony Basil, Joe Vitale, Berklee College of Music president Roger Brown, and 90-year-old Auschwitz survivor Rose Schindler. Inspiring, comforting, and entertaining. Also, be sure to check out last week's episode where we talk about the new Netflix documentary, Crip Camp, A Disability Revolution, with directors Nicole Newnham and James Lebrecht. The film was executive produced by President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. I created this show to focus on what it takes to create and maintain a lasting career in the ever-changing landscape of the entertainment business. So today my guest is actually a longtime friend of mine, Vail Johnson. And Vail's a bass player, singer, songwriter, producer, and many other things. And we have toured together, we've recorded together, we've had meals together, and lots of years of laughs together. And made some pretty cool music. Wouldn't you say so, Vail?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me tell everybody a little bit about you. Vail Johnson. The seventh son in a family of musicians, Vail was blessed with widely diverse influences. His professional career as a bass player began straight out of high school, headfirst into the club scene around Seattle, followed by the West Coast, then national to international tours with multiple bands. Connecting with Kenny G in Seattle early 1986 set Vail on an unimaginable ride that continues to this day. Never content to be just a sideman, he continually developed his band leader and vocal skills with 6 solo CDs, which brings us to the present, his latest project called Around the World in 40 Years, Music and Musings from a Remarkable Career. Vail Johnson, welcome to Making It.
All right. Thanks, Terry. It's great to be with you.
Yes, it is. It's great to see you. We don't get to see each other as much anymore because you moved. You originally grew up in Seattle, came to LA, and spent many, many years here. What year did you move to LA?
I moved in, I guess it would have been 87.
87.
And then it's late 80s, like spring of 87. And spent 23 years there. In the spring of 2010, came to Nashville area, and that's what I did. But I remember it was the funniest thing. I moved to LA. We were looking for houses, and it was April. And so I hadn't been to LA that much at that point, not really spent much time. So I'm coming down the 101 and we just start looking in kind of the first areas that we get to, which is out in the Woodland Hills area. And we found a really cool place, and I bought like the third house that I was looking at after looking for houses for 3 days, right? I really do all my research. And then come July, no one told me that it gets up to 110 in the valley. And holy crap, that was crazy, because I'm down there in April and it's 72 degrees. I'm thinking, wow, this is paradise. Nobody told me. I would have definitely been on the other side of the hill there, but geez, but it was a great area to be in, but I had no idea it was so dang hot there.
First of all, just, hindsight, note to self, research is always a good thing. Did you do the same thing when you moved to Nashville? Did you actually just go and find a house, or did you and Denise actually do some research?
This time I did a lot of research. Yeah, I looked around a lot, got a good idea of where we wanted, the area that where we would really feel comfortable and want to be. So this time we did, definitely.
So when you moved to LA, you moved in a different way than many musicians do, because you moved here essentially with a job.
I moved here with a gig, yes. Yeah.
And so many artists that I've had on the show, including myself, moved here with $1,000 in our pocket and, parked cars or drove a taxi or,
right.
Did all the various different things. But you were already a pretty successful touring and recording musician at that point.
Right. Yeah. So that was definitely definitely a lot easier for me than, if I had moved there, without a gig. I mean, I can't imagine that would have been really rough. So when people ask me, how do you get get some good gigs in LA? And I would tell them, well, go there with a gig first.
Right.
And if you can move somewhere where you don't need to work, sorry, I got something in my eye. For those watching on video, it's crazy. Something just flew into my eye.
Don't touch your face. Wash your hands.
Oh no, I got. I'm not wearing a mask, but I am wearing a condom.
Oh, good.
Right now, so we're clear.
Always prepared. Right.
so,
right. You don't do the research, but you definitely have never been shy about being prepared for anything and everything.
Yes, I'm ready.
You're ready.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I came there with a gig, and the same thing here. When I moved here, obviously already established. Even though, and that said, it does open some doors, obviously, but I still feel like I had to prove myself just as much as if I were just completely unknown. So the opportunities came easier, but when you get that opportunity, if you're not great, it doesn't matter who you're touring
right.
with, they just won't call you back. So it's still, so in that way, I didn't have to network maybe as much, but you still have to come prepared and do the job. So otherwise they won't call you. They'll just say, oh yeah, I hired that guy. Yeah, he's out on the road a lot, but it wasn't happening in the studio or whatever, so
what was your first month, 6 months, year like in Nashville? Like, how did you start? How did you get your foot in the door? I mean, again, you were already still, I think at that point you hadn't started touring with Keb Mo yet.
Well, that's a great story in itself, because you were the catalyst for that.
That was such a natural hookup to introduce the two of you.
Yeah, that was awesome. So I come here in 2010. As I moved in, we got the house. Denise stayed in LA for most of the next 3 years because she's had all of her her legal business. So she had to.
Meaning she's a lawyer. She's not a defendant.
She's a lawyer. Yeah, right. Yeah, she was in the joint. Okay,
right.
let's just cut right to it. Okay. Yeah, no, she's a lawyer. So I'm here by myself. I moved here the day before the flood.
Oh, right.
Flood here, and then and the next couple of days, I just had no idea. I'm thinking, man, I did not know it rained like that here. I didn't know this was a catastrophic event. But so we got through that, and I swear it was maybe a week later, sitting in the house with no furniture, no nothing, because the truck is stuck on the freeway. They're just floods on either end, and they're just there, And so I got nothing in the house. I get a call from Keb Mo, and we'd never met. You told me about him. Obviously, I knew that you worked with him, but I'd never met him. And so I just get this call, and you'll appreciate this. I go hello, and he goes, hey man, like he always does. Hey man, what you doing? And I said, oh, I'm just hanging out. He goes, okay, oh cool. Well, this is Kevin Moore. I got your number from Terry. And I said, oh yeah, great. He goes, well, we're coming over. And I said, sure, okay. I gave him the address, and he was not too far away, and he comes over like 20 minutes later. He and Robbie and Carter, I think was 4 at the time, and they came over, and we just made fast friends, and we did a bunch of work together in like 2011, 12, 13, or like late 2010. I did a couple records with him, and then Kenny was going through domestic turbulent times, and so not touring very much, and so that worked perfect because Keb was doing a bunch of stuff, and as you know, he goes out, he has a full band for a while, a year or two, and then he'll go and do his solo stuff, and this was his full band time, so he hired a full band, and we did a couple 2.5 years of really a lot of work all around the world, and it was really great. It was a fantastic time with Keb, and then he stopped doing that and started to do the solo thing, and right when Kenny got back to work again, so that worked out really well for me. But thanks again for the connection. That was
You're welcome.
Hilarious. Yeah. I just talked to him a couple days ago. We get together for coffee every now and then, and it's just really, really funny.
I love Kevin. He's a great guy, really talented, and just one of us, one of the team.
Well, he's and one of the things I really dig about him is one of the things I really dig about you is that the best, in my experience, the best sidemen are the ones who are really great leaders, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
The best leaders were also really great sidemen. And Kevin, like yourself, Kevin is a great sideman. He's a great rhythm guitar player, and most of his life he was, the guitar player in bands, as you know. Well, a lot of people probably don't. They might think he was a solo artist since he was 20, but that's not the case. He was a sideman, and he just gets it. He understands the band, and that's what it's like with you. You're a great leader, but you're the best sideman that I ever hired, because
thank you.
The conscientiousness that comes along with being a great leader, you'd be a sideman. I mean, that is so valuable, and I love that about Kevin. And he can relate to the band like a musician, not an artist.
It's really cool to hear you say that and to talk to you about that, because I feel the same way about you. And, one of the things that I wanted to discuss today was that you have kind of a unique approach to being a music director. And part of that is in a way similar to mine and Kevin's in exactly what you're speaking to, that because of your years of being a sideman with so many artists of so many diverse styles of music, you really know how to show up and be a great leader, but you do it with such a sense of humor, and you don't handhold anybody. You choose your musicians well so that you don't have to babysit. And I remember the joke when we used to tour together, when we would show up to rehearsal or airport or whatever it would be, or the TV show, it's like, who's leading today? Is it you or me? I don't remember, and
right.
Yeah. And then we would just joke, and I would go, "Oh, it's you, Vail. So today I get to just be a goof off and just play the guitar, And
right.
But it was kind of it was one of the things I like about working with you, also, because you get both sides of the table. You really understand how to be a great sideman and how to be a great leader, and I couldn't agree with you more. My best bands have always been when it's filled with other leaders and artists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you don't, it's like you say, you don't, and this would be, I think this is, if we're talking to younger players or players that are still aspiring to, higher goals in the business, that's the thing, to be conscientious about your gig. You come to a show, it's like when rehearsal is not practice. Rehearsal is to run the songs and iron out, arrangements and parts and, intros and stuff like this. But you're not learning the song. Please don't go to rehearsal to learn the song. And when you hire guys like us, you come to rehearsal and everybody knows the song like they've been playing it for 3 years. You know the song, you count it off, and you go and you play the song. And it's like, then at that point, you shape it to sound like you want it to sound with that particular group. But so many guys, and it happens here too in Nashville with all the great players. You'd think the bar for proficiency would be higher in that there're just so many great players. But I'll tell you, it's not different than LA in that there are still people that are really lazy, that are talented and lazy. And I've hired so many people over this span of time, one time.
Right.
I've hired so many people one time. And it's like, man, and there's a few people that I wish would just move in with me and stay here so I could always have them. But it's only a few. It's not very many. I mean, there's a ton of great musicians here, and there's a bunch of really lazy people. And or maybe entitled.
Why do you think that people that, even though they're incredibly talented, that are that lazy, are able to maintain a career? I'm always baffled by that.
Well, I think whatever they're able to maintain, I think they could do a lot better for sure. But I know a lot of, and I know a lot of really talented guys that don't have a career because of them being lazy. So, I mean, there is a certain element of, I don't know, not luck so much, good fortune. I don't know, happy accidents of meeting somebody, or that it really plays into this business, because it's so much about relationships. Obviously, if you want to be hired over and over again, I mean, you got to have relationships with people. But I think, man, I'd have to go back to school to brush up on my psychology to try to figure out why really talented people can so often be lazy. I think it's just an ego thing. That, I mean, I when I was younger, I had a very, very healthy ego that had egos of its own.
It's true. You did, but you always had the talent to back it up. But yes,
but at the same time, I always worked my ass off, and I expected everybody else to as well.
Right.
And I didn't always handle that in the best way, because I expected everybody to play perfectly too. And I expected myself to play perfectly. So that's rough. But I was like that throughout the garage bands in junior high. I was like that already from the very beginning. It's like people are coming and they want to goof off. And man, come on, but this is serious. We're 12 years old. If we don't make it soon, the time's running out. So I always had that thing, but that has served me well, because to this day, if I'll take gigs for essentially no money still, because for the experience.
Right.
And for the practice, I mean, any gig can be beneficial, even if it's a bad gig. Bad gigs can be even more beneficial in some ways, because it teaches you how to hold things together and how to stay humble. And just, there's been gigs I feel like, with some drummers, especially, my analogy is like I'm pulling a 10-ton trailer full of anvils across the Mojave Desert. It's like I'm doing all the work, and everybody else is just kind of trying to drag me down,
slowing you down.
But those gigs are important too. So
right. Yeah.
I'm shocked by the number of people here that won't even carry their own equipment to do a gig. And I'm talking young people. We're talking like 25 years old. When you were 25 years old, you didn't care. You would take your amp up the stairs to Le Cafe,
right,
it's a backbreaker. Right. You wouldn't, we didn't balk at that back then. But now it's like a lot of the clubs here do have amps anyway, and maybe a drum set, but some that don't. I've had guys say, no, I don't want to do that gig because, they don't have a drum kit there, and I don't want to carry my drums. And I'm thinking, really? Seriously?
Right.
You don't want to do the gig. You're 25, you're living at home, and you got a lot of talent, and you want to be a musician, but you're not going to do the gig because you have to move your drums? Well, that was a guy I called once, and right. I get a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's
pretty limited thinking. Really limited.
Yeah.
Well, this take me back to growing up, because you come from a family of overachievers. And you had told me one time, a long time, when we first became friends, and we were just talking about your level of achievement, like that you're diligent, you work really hard, and you've accomplished things in your life, in your career, personally and professionally. And you said, oh, no, I'm not even the talented one in the family. And I remember hearing that from James Ingram also, when James would go, oh, I'm not the best singer in my family.
Right,
right. And I go, oh, you mean your brother Philip? He goes, no, not Philip. He goes, my brother who's a pastor.
Right.
The one who's not in the music business. He's the best singer of any of us.
Yeah, right.
So tell me about tell the listeners about your family. I know one of your brothers plays upright bass, and he's a Philharmonic player.
Well, brother Ron is actually percussion. He played percussion in the Seattle Symphony. He passed away a few years ago. Cancer got him. Yeah. But he played in the symphony. Yeah. Thanks. For 45 years.
Right.
So right out of high school, this is how good he was. Right out of high school, Ballard High School in Seattle, Washington, got a full scholarship to Manhattan School of Music. Went there 2 years, got his degree, straight into the symphony, and was there for 45 years. Ended up being the principal percussionist and then, but that's not enough. He was also the librarian at times. He was the union rep. He wrote a couple of symphonies himself, I mean, it's just, it's crazy. And so it's guys like that. Brother Jeff got his doctorate from NYU when he was 22. He was a PhD at 22.
Wow.
He so, and it's like, so stuff like that in my family,
Right.
This guy and a couple others, there's a couple of doctors, not medical doctors, a couple of doctors in my family. And, the oldest brother, Gareth, the master's degree in business, but he was the first guy I played in a band with two of my older brothers down in Pioneer Square in Seattle. And we played Dixieland music. They both played banjos, and he was really a great banjo player. The 4-string, with the pick, not the strumma. That.
Were you playing trumpet back then in that band, or were you playing?
No,
bass?
I played bass because that was right out of high school. I started with them. I started in 4th grade on trumpet. So Seattle had a great music system in the schools, the public schools there, when I was growing up and my brothers growing up. So everybody, if you wanted to start an instrument, you started in the 4th grade, school bands. You get a private instruction. You get in. And I was in the band and I played trumpet. And at that time, every room in our house had somebody playing, an instrument at varying degrees of awfulness, learning and playing different things.
And were your parents cool with that? Did they encourage all of you?
Absolutely. Our dad was not musical at all, but he loved it. He thought it was great. Our mom was a master musician, as was her mom. So dig this. Go back to, say, 1930, middle of the Depression. My mom, she was born in 1915. My mom and her mom, who was at the time only 16 years older than her.
Wow.
My grandma was a bit of a tramp.
Well, it runs in the family.
So they're traveling around hopping freight trains in Montana, being like hobos, going from town to town, playing in saloons. They had
straight up Woody Guthrie. Yeah.
And they had this act, and they pretended they were sisters.
Wow.
Not mom and daughter. So they were sisters. My mom played piano, my grandma played banjo, and they both sang, and they worked. That's how they survived the Depression, traveling around playing music for a living. And my grandmother also played for silent movie theater. She played the big Wurlitzer, the mighty Wurlitzer, with 6 registers or whatever. She played that back then. So it's crazy. So then my mom comes up, she's turned out to be a great keyboard player. So she played church organ and played that really cool stride piano. I guess she could just whip on that. And so everybody we all got into music. So our mom really encouraged it, totally supported it. And so our house was the rehearsal house. So for every band that we all had.
I read that basically, even though you grew up around music and that you played trumpet in school and everything, as a bass player, you're pretty much self-taught. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah. Completely self-taught on bass.
So did you teach yourself to read bass clef and?
Yes. Yeah. That didn't seem that hard because, I read music already, I understood how to read by playing trumpet. So when I took up bass, I got a book and showed me what the notes are, learned bass clef that way from a book. And, it's a Rufus Reed book. That's really good, really, really cool. I learned from that, how to, what the note values are, and then just studied. I did a little bit of study once I got to University of Washington, did a little bit of theory there, but it was terribly, terribly bored with that. And but learned enough to where I could teach myself, and that was it. But as far as technique and playing bass, I just figured it out. Just figured it out how to make noise. I'm really good with trial and error in everything. It's like how I learned computer. The manuals confused me to try to learn how to, you want to learn MS-DOS from reading it. It's a struggle for me, but trial and error, man, I'll figure it out. And I can remember what worked and remember what didn't work. And it's for bass, it was the same thing with me, just figuring it out. How do you hit the thing? What sounds come out? And really pay attention to the sound,
Mm-hmm.
trying to replicate sounds that I've heard on a record or whatever, and I just figured it out myself.
Well, for somebody who's self-taught, you, especially not just for live, but in the studio, you really have excellent formal skills. I mean, you're not afraid to look at a chart, and your reading level is of anybody's that I've worked with who is much more formally trained. And I'm saying not just about reading the notes and sight reading and all that, but you can look at a piece of music and insert yourself into it pretty quickly, even if it's technically challenging, and because we've been in the studio together before where I've just put a piece of music in front of you and you just read it down, but it still feels like you.
Yeah.
How'd you learn that? Thanks. Is that just your nature?
It's a lot of work. I worked on it. I worked on it a lot. I got one of my cats has come in to say hello.
Hello.
One of my, I worked on it a lot. Figuring out why certain bass notes sound good with certain chords. To get past, the just root oriented things. So I examined and analyzed in my own way. That's why I think Paul McCartney was the best ever at it. That's who got me into playing bass. Is that melodic nature. It's like the root is just that's just another note in whatever they're playing.
One of the options.
It wasn't like you got to have it. He was all over the place, and man, beautiful playing. Yeah. So I just started asking myself the question of, well, why do those notes sound good there in that chord? And I'd figure out, well, what is the chord that they're playing? And I'd kind of figure it out and then say, okay, well, I see. Well, that, because I think in shapes. I don't think I can see the staff and I can read the notes, but if you give me a chord there, I'm not thinking like a piano player or guitar player would and think of the staff. I think of shapes on the instrument. So if you say, play it, C, sharp 11 or something, I'll think of this shape.
Right.
On the, that I don't think of, okay, I got to do C and then a B and then, I don't think that way. So once I've learned them, I just kind of think in shapes, and it's more visual, I guess.
Yeah. Well, our instruments, our guitar and bass instruments, what I think one thing they have in common is they are in some way shape oriented and they're sonically oriented. I do that also because I work in a lot of altered tunings, and the only way to work my head around that is to think shapes. Otherwise, your head's just going to explode. So. So what's it like being one of 7 siblings?
Man, well, it was great for me. I loved it. I'm the youngest one, and so I was both spoiled and tortured, at the same time. It'd be like sportured, or I was toiled. I was twirled. Yeah, no, it's it was great because I learned so much, by osmosis from my brothers, and that's where I got my my ethos with regard to music. I learned that, and I think we all learned from example, and not so much as I learned a lot from my dad, but by example. We hardly ever talked about anything particularly important. Just learn by example, and I can see what he does, and I learned a lot that way. And I learned that from my brothers, and my brother Ron is probably the most influential about. Well, I learned from him. So my version of what I learned from him is that if you play it perfectly, you can do anything else that you want. You can have a blast. You can be goofy. You can be serious. You can whatever. You can be irreverent, as long as you're playing it freaking perfect. And I learned that from him just by example, because one of my great memories of being on stage, quote unquote, was when my brother Ron got into the symphony. I went and saw him in 6th grade. We had a field trip from my elementary school. Every year, 6th grade music classes would go to the symphony, and my brother was playing in it. And I remember going backstage with him, and there And he'll just tell you when this was. You know, they're backstage, smoking and drinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with whatever they have in their thermos, and they're smoking. They have a ping pong table. They're back there playing ping pong. You know, it's like the brass and the percussion section would sneak off stage in the middle of the performance when it's all orchestra, just the strings, and they're back there smoking and cutting up and playing ping pong. And so my brother comes up, and you know, he's listening on the monitor. He goes, "Okay, we got to go back out." So he goes, "Yeah, come on out with me." So, but he said, you know, just stay low. So I crawled and got over to me, and he's got this timpani part coming up, and I'm there on the floor, right next to his feet, and you know how the timpanists will retune, you know, with their ear on the in the middle of a performance.
With the pedal.
He's like, dum, dum, dum. Oh, so like this. So as soon as he starts coming up with this part, what do? I start pressing the pedal. So he's like, dum, 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 dum. He's like kicking me with his foot. Still, his part never varied, but he smacked me with his foot, retuned immediately, and just went on for the rest of the show and never said anything about it. He didn't say anything to me about it. It was no, that was fine. I can take that in, and I'm still nailing it.
Right.
You know? And so that was a great thing for me. It's like, you can have fun playing music. Wow, that's cool.
I can really see him in you from that story. Absolutely.
You know, but it's got to be right.
Yeah.
You got to do it right. You know, it's like, and that's what I learned. So everything that I try to, every situation I'm in, I always really do the very best that I can, make sure everything's right. And then it's whatever you feel like, you know, and that worked good with Kevin too, because he's, you know, he really, you know, he insists on things being right. As you know, you got your part. Yeah. Everybody in the band, this is the part, and you stay there.
And actually, not just your part, but it's like, hey man, wait, which pickup are you using?
No, yeah, I know.
Hang on.
It's the first time ever in a rehearsal. I'm sitting there playing, and he comes over, and you know this, but everyone else would probably be surprised. He comes over, and he'll kind of, you know, 2 feet away from you, look at you right in the face, and then he'll look at your hands, and he'll get close to your hands, and then he'll start turning the knobs on your instrument while you're playing, and I'm like, I can't believe you're doing this while I'm playing. He's experimenting with different things. It was so weird, you know, but hey, that's the level of involvement that he is comfortable with. And
and it pays off musically.
Yeah, put the pickup where you want it. That's fine with me. I don't care.
Exactly.
You know, it's your party. Fine. You know, but it's interesting though. I thought that was interesting.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
He come up to you, it's like this. and I loved it, because I'm thinking he's probably expecting me to react, you know, like be afraid or something. So I'm looking at him and smiling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And for those of you, by the way, who are listening to the podcast and not looking at the video, Dale just went full face into the camera.
Yeah. So you got your boss. Yeah. You can smell what he was just drinking right in your face, looking at you, you know, but expression kind of blank, but still I could see how that could make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, well, he was testing me. Fine. You want to kiss me? Go ahead. All right. Come on, bring it on.
Bring it.
You know, I was fine, you know.
And you never missed a note, right?
And that's the thing.
Never stop playing.
You can't get derailed.
Right.
Never get derailed. Yeah. And that's and that ties in perfectly. I was telling a story about my brother, Ron, you know, anything happens. It doesn't matter.
So you've worked with a lot of different artists. So let's just pick 4 or 5 right now. Starting with the obvious, with Kenny G, who you've been working with for so many years. But what quality in some of these artists that you've worked with do you feel really accounts for their level of success, you know, or having a good life? You know, starting with Kenny, like what have you learned from Kenny?
Man, you know, if I wasn't already taking, you know, I never thought about the business side of things as so much as the music. Well, what I learned from Kenny is that you need to take the business side of things as seriously as you do the music. Because I saw it early on with him when we first started playing. We're playing bars, clubs. You know, we were lucky to be an opening act for somebody who would later be an opening act for us. I mean, right. So we're playing these small places. Kenny's driving the van. We got a van full of people and gear, and he's driving it. I mean, those are the gigs that we were doing. Yeah,
you guys have some history.
And so I saw early on when he got his opportunities. With Clive Davis really helped him out a lot. It was kind of a make or break record for him as far as Arista goes. It was his fourth record, the one with Songbird on it, called Duotones. So his fourth record, and it was going to be make or break for his, future with Arista. And Clive really liked Songbird, and he helped them push it, and that really worked. But I remember we're out on the road, once we're doing some little bits of touring, we're out on the road, and we could be in the middle of doing something, and he goes, "Oh man, okay, well 5 o'clock, okay, I got a phoner, I got to go do," and he's always on it every time he's on it. So he was like, every request made by the record company or promoter, he would do
without complaining about it.
No, yeah, never complained. It's like, nope, I got to go do this. Okay, yeah, I'll see you guys at sound check. I gotta run. I gotta, and he'd go. And he would do it every single thing, and never went, "Oh man, oh shit, I gotta go to this record store. Oh man, I can't believe it." You never heard that from him. It was like, okay, well, got a record store, going to Tower Records in Duluth or whatever, and I'll see you guys at sound check, and that was, and I was like, wow, okay, he's taking this stuff seriously.
Yeah,
and he worked as hard at the business end of it as he did with the music, and what I learned about his music was that he is genuinely the music that you hear. None of this is calculated, really, at all. It's not calculated. It's really him. The melody that he comes up with, I mean, that's him. He's about the melodies, and so his earlier tunes that were definitely more funk and R&B oriented, still it was about melodies. His early hits were, he's playing alto and they have a singer on the band, like, "Hi, how you doing?" and stuff like that, and but he's about the melody, and he's always been that. So it's funny when people say, "Oh yeah, well he used to be able to play, with when he was with Jeff Lorber, yeah, I heard him play, but then he sold out and just wanted to make money." It's like, not really.
No, right, I agree.
Not really, because when he did it, he did that whole record himself in his bedroom with a Linn drum machine and some, early sequencer thing, probably had a DX7 floppy disk version.
Sure.
And did all that and recorded the horns himself. He did it all himself on an Otari 8-track reel-to-reel.
Right.
Not Atari, with an A. Oh, remember
O-T-A-R-I.
for the young people
kids
out there. Otari.
Look it up.
And so there's no selling out, because there was nothing to sell out to. He was he was who he was, and he just, these are the songs I like. This is me, and it happened. So that's what we talked about earlier about being genuine, being your genuine self.
Yeah,
is what really works. I believe so.
I do too. David Cassidy, somebody we both worked with. You brought me into that camp, and I found him to be a really interesting artist in person.
Yes.
And you worked with David for longer than I did. So what qualities in David did you learn?
Man, with David, I was fascinated. I did a record with him. Rick Trudikoff, the producer, brought me in on that. And then I met David, and that's when he asked me to be his music director, to do some work. And that's, when you came in to the band. But what I loved about David is that I found him to be incredibly humble, but genuinely humble. He was still, a bigger than life personality in a lot of ways. But I found him to be really humble. And when I learned more about why he stopped touring, he was the biggest thing in the world at the time. Yeah. This was 72 or something, and he was doing the 60, 70,000 seat places all over Europe, by himself. No opening acts, no nothing, with him and his band, on I Think I Love You and all of that stuff. And he was the big pop star of the early 70s. It was incredible, for that kind of pop music, and when he had those massive crushes of the crowd and people were killed, and that's what did it. He felt so guilty about that, that he couldn't play and he stopped. But to hear the stories about those successes back then, and it was really great. But he was so candid with us, I thought, and so that's why he seemed really humble and open, to us. We'd talk about things and talk about his life and, challenges and successes. I thought it was really refreshing to have someone, that had that history, that would come with people that were fairly new in his life, like we were, and be so open.
I agree. I really found him. I found him to be very accessible and had a great deal of humility. And I found him to be really a talented musician. Yeah. And because one of the things he said to me when we were just shooting poops, during a break, during rehearsal, going, which that's a perfect example. That doesn't always happen, where you go out with the artist and just play basketball for a few minutes and get to know each other. And, and he said, this acting thing was just sort of an aside. I was always a musician first. And that made sense. I didn't know that about him, but it was pretty clear. It was really pretty clear. I want to read 3 quotes about you.
Okay.
One is
I was young. I needed the money. I swear I checked your ID.
And 3.
And the third one will remain a mystery.
Right. The first quote's from Kenny G. Vail is one of the rare breed who excel in both the studio and on stage. So I think that's high praise from somebody who is also excellent at both, and that does in some ways sum you up musically, skill wise. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Arsenio Hall, who you were a regular on his show as a featured guest artist, bass player that Vail would bring in, or that Arsenio would bring in. He said Vail plays his face off. Yeah, and Arsenio is another person who, same thing. Has a lot of humility, and really loves music, and I thought it was so cool back in the day when he would use the platform to just mix it up and bring you in and let you just play in the intro of the show and sit with the band and everything. Before we get to the third quote, do you have any favorite memories of working with Arsenio and the band back in the day?
Oh man, there is some really fun stuff. The first thing that jumps out at me is not specifically about Arsenio, but I think people would find it funny anyway. And I'm walking around, during, after rehearsals and, the dinner time and just kind of hanging time. And I'm walking back toward my dressing room, and I noticed somebody sitting in this stairwell, like an emergency exit stairwell, somebody sitting on the stairwell. And I look over and I go, holy crap, that's Mike Tyson. and I looked at him, and this was when he was still Mike Tyson. Yeah. It was before, and I looked at him, I said, hi. And I just kept on walking because he had the aura that was 100 feet wide. Yeah, he filled up a lot of space. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that was him. Okay. I'm gonna find a happy place. He's scary. But I mean, he's apparently, from all I've seen, we really didn't talk with him, but he seems to be a sweetheart of a guy, in a lot of ways. He seems like a sensitive, really interesting person, but holy crap, does he have an aura about him though? He really does. He's he's physically big, but his presence, his energy, it really expands. I met him in a stairwell or doorway one time too on a sound stage, and it was with the exception, we went a little bit further. I said hi and he said hello, and he was really nice. But I was totally beside myself as well, because he's a very commanding presence. That was fun. But Arsenio was always he was so much fun. And I loved his, and talking about being able to you know, improvise, not so much musically, but just taking advantage of a situation, just being ready for anything. It's like the first time that I went there, I didn't talk to him before. We had met before and talked, because I'd been on the show a number of times with Kenny, but he saw me over at Universal doing a gig there, and that's where I got a million connections. That's where I got the connection with him and you know, Stevie Nicks and a whole bunch of Paula Abdul. I got that gig from playing at Universal and meeting him backstage. But I didn't know what was going to go on. The producers didn't say anything. They just said, you know, we rehearsed. I'm up on the bandstand, you know, with John B. And I had kind of a feature, you know, it's just kind of slapping thing. And that's what I thought I was going to do during the show. It's like what we had rehearsed. And so the beginning of the show, he does a little bit of his monologue, and then he turns around and just goes, "Vail," and I go, "Yeah," you know, like this. And he goes, "Come on down," or "Come on down off the stage," and I'm like, and you know, outwardly I go, "Okay, sure," you know, like this. Inwardly I'm going, "Holy crap, what the hell is he talking about?" You know, so now all of a sudden, now I'm not playing, now I'm talking.
Right.
I'm answering questions. I was not ready for that. He goes, "So what's this about what's this name Vail?" You know, and he's asking me stuff, and I'm like, "Oh wow, this is a trip." Okay, all right, I'm, you know, let's own it, you know. And so then I start playing, and he's like dancing around me, and we like start doing hits together. He's like, "Okay, give me a breakdown," and we're doing all this stuff, and I was just never, in no other circumstance in my life, have ever done anything like that, where on TV, and we're just, it's like he was producing, he was like a conductor, and he's conducting me and the band, and we stop here and we do a hit and I play, and he's talking over me and talking in my ear, talking crap and stuff. And it's just, it's like, man, I mean, that's just overall for me, that's a great memory. It was so much fun, completely unexpected, had no idea any of that was going to happen. And, but just went with it, you know, because it's like, you know, okay, just ready for anything.
And it became a pretty regular thing. You know, he would bring you on quite often, and I always really enjoyed seeing that, and you know, seeing you get to shine in a different way.
Yeah, thanks.
You know,
thanks.
on that show, it was really fun. One more quote, which is from Herbie Hancock, and it's a very simple quote: "He's a monster."
Yeah, right.
Tell me about your interactions with Herbie.
Man, so we're talking mid-90s. I get on a tour with Herbie, and it's one of those quote unquote all-star tour things put together by a promoter who I knew, Larry Bailey, in LA. And so it's a pretty decent band. It's got Herbie playing keyboards. It's got I think let's see, Gerald Albright, everybody loves, on sax.
Yeah.
You know, Terry Lynn Carrington was playing drums. Doc Powell was playing guitar. Doc Gibbs playing percussion. Layla Hathaway sang a couple tunes, and Gil Scott Heron came and played some songs.
Revolution will not be televised.
Yes.
Go look it up if you don't know what we're talking about.
But it'll be on YouTube. You know.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. So I'm sitting in a bus with broken down air conditioning in the middle of summer, traveling across the country with that group of guys, and it was really fun and really, really interesting. That, you know, challenging in a lot of ways, from the situation, and that's a lot of big personalities in that group.
Yeah.
You know, and so trying to find a way to help glue it all together. You know, and it was really cool. You know, Herbie was a pretty quiet guy, didn't talk a lot, but we talked, you know, enough to get to kind of know what each other's about. And but he was pretty quiet. The thing that I remember most about Herbie is that, you know, when we were doing tunes mostly off of Dis's Da Drum record, and a lot of it's synths and sequenced and all that. But we did some old Headhunters versions of songs too. So, you know, so we're doing Butterfly, Headhunters version, and Cantaloupe Island and Watermelon Man, you know, Headhunter style. And every night when we do, you know, the odd time, you know, Cantaloupe Island, when we do the odd time signature solo section, every night, his solos, I swear, I never heard the same lick twice.
Right.
And it just pure creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like almost everybody in the world that plays has kind of signature things that sounds like
their vocabulary.
Sounds like you know,
right.
That sounds like, oh, you know, that's okay. That's Jimmy Page. You know, but everything he played was like it was brand new.
Yeah.
It's like I would have thought of those notes in that order,
right,
in that meter. And every night it was different. And the only other person
that he shows up and he's present.
Yeah, he's there every night, and nothing was ever autopilot.
Right.
And the only other guy that I've worked with that I would say that about is George Benson. His solos are like that too. It's like it's different every night, and it's freaking brilliant.
Right.
And it's music, you know.
Right.
And it's, you know, extemporaneous brilliance, you know, I don't think is particularly common, but those guys have it.
Yeah.
Those guys have it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like an unlimited ability on the instrument, so that anything you're thinking comes out without even thinking about it. It's like fluid. It's like turning on a faucet.
Right.
And you know water's going to come out. I mean, that's what it's like. Herbie and George, to me, you just turn them on and beautiful music comes out. It's amazing.
So that must have deeply influenced you as a musician yourself.
Absolutely. So I aspire to that, and I'm only 150,000 miles away from it, but I'm getting there.
Right. Right, because you've been in the room when somebody turned the light on for a moment, so you actually see what's possible.
Yes. To see. That's a great way to put it. To experience the possibility.
Right.
And it's a blessing and a curse. It's like to know that that's possible, and to understand that almost no one is ever going to get there.
Right.
You know, you could take that and be disappointed, but I still, on the positive side of it, I'm still striving for it. And so I'm trying different things all the time for that reason. You know, and people ask me, like, with, you know, when I'm at, you know, with Kenny and I got my solo spot, it got to the point to where now my solo spot with Kenny is just, I have a freeform thing, because I got tired of doing this, you know, a structured solo, because I found myself just playing the same stuff over, because now I'm in a rut. And
right, and it probably is seductive for you to play the same thing over and over again, because the response that you get from the audience is positive.
Right, because they haven't heard it 800 times.
Right, so it's exciting.
I've heard it 800 times, and I'm bored. You know, if I do it 3 times. Now, so that may be part of the curse of knowing what's possible, is that now that you know, you've seen behind the curtain, now you're not the same anymore.
Right, you can't go back to sleep.
Yeah. So now I want to try to, you know, create something interesting and important all the time, and that's really hard. You know? But to do it the other way, I can't go back to the other way. It's really tough for me. So that was and this ties into something that I learned from Keb Mo. Not that he taught it to me, you know, on purpose, but I picked up things. I steal things from everybody, and I pick up things from Keb. And one of the things I love about Keb is when he does his solo, he does a solo bit, and he can play just solo on that dobro, just finger picking and singing, and you don't miss the rest of the band, you know. And I say that at the peril of making you know, everyone else seem irrelevant, but it sounds complete as it is. And so I think I'm sitting there paying attention. I started recording, and I'm looking at him, I'm watching him, I go, what are you doing? And why does it sound so cool? You know, because lots of guys play solo dobro, and lots of guys are, you know, technical masters in ways that Keb isn't. It still doesn't sound like that, though.
Right.
You know, it doesn't sound like Keb. And so I'm thinking, how can I do some of that on bass? I came up with some things. Can I play it?
Yeah.
A couple of bars.
Oh,
or
I would
something?
love that. Absolutely.
Because he asked me one night. Well, you know how he is. He asked me one night when he was changing something on his guitar, and he looks over and he goes, hey man, play Amazing Grace or something like that. Huh? Well, okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like, okay, yeah, I'm taking a couple of minutes. It's like, okay, go.
Yeah.
So I started practicing. Can you hear that? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I came up with, after struggling with that for a while, I came up. I started doing his thumb style.
Nice.
I came up with that kind of thing and figuring out, how can I do that on bass? And it just kind of, so that's something that was totally new to me, trying to do like Delta blues on the bass,
right?
Because I'm thinking, well, why not? Why can't I?
That's the perfect question. So why not?
Yeah. So that was what I was learning that stuff and trying to come up with ideas. And I did a bunch of songs on my latest record, and a bunch of my new original stuff is that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing it on bass, bass and singing. Because I'm thinking, well, why not? Well,
it's definitely it's very unique approach, and it feels so much like you. I can see Kevin's influence, but it feels really natural to hear you play like that, even though I've never heard anybody else play the bass like that.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fun,
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that you guys went out. You guys opened. You were out with Keb when you were playing with Bonnie Raitt, right?
Yeah. We spent a year.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's like. It's like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Why can't you do it on the bass? I like how it sounds, so I just kept doing.
Man, I love it. So, have you played around with doing any like solo bass instrumental albums?
Well,
what you're doing right now, because I love when you sing. I'm not saying don't sing, but that's really pretty fresh.
Yeah, thanks. I do.
I know you do for your live shows.
Yeah. That's my Around the World in 40 Years is my live show, and it's all bass and vocal.
You also use a looper during your live show, which is pretty cool.
So of course I have to do it. I do a Herbie Hancock song, and so talking about solo bass, I set up these loops that's it's all just from this bass. Is that coming through? Okay.
Yep, got it.
So
that's great.
So I do stuff like that,
Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, and that's just all noise made on this thing.
Which looper are you using?
4-string bass. It's the RC300.
Mm-hmm.
Boss RC300. So it's the 3-channel looper.
Yeah.
So I can, it's fun.
Can I keep you on the show for a little bit longer? I know we're over an hour, but there's a couple things that I want to ask you about. One is just like on a personal level. So, I thought it's always fun for me to talk about things people might not know about my guest. And we got a little glimpse of it earlier in the show. You've become a cat lady, out of you have 2 cats now.
Yes.
And you have never had cats before. You were like kind of a dog guy and a motorcycle guy and all that stuff. So how'd that happen?
Man, it's hilarious. So where we live out here in Franklin, we're in the woods, basically. We're close to town, but it's a wooded area around us that has, we have bobcats, we have, possum, we have all kinds of little critters that are aggressive. So we were helping a neighbor look for their lost cat, which obviously had been eaten, like many of them killed by the local wildlife. But we're over at the animal shelter, and because we said, well, we were thinking about getting a dog, Denise and I. Maybe let's get a pet or something. Thinking about it because I'm gone a lot, and it'd been nice to have for Denise to have some companionship at home, and other than that endless string of guys that she has over here. So I was trying to think of something 4-legged, and so
less competition.
Yeah, right. But so we go to the shelter. We're going to look for their little cat. So we went over there. We go into the cat room. All these cages stacked to the ceiling. With the cats, almost all of them just in there, just looking really tired and bored and whatever. We walk in, and there's one big, fat Garfield-looking cat. As soon as I walked in, he starts talking to me. He's like, and pressing his face through the bars. I'm like, what in the world is this? And I put my hand up, and he's like all happy and purring, and I'm like, wow, what a trip. That's weird, and I said, and Denise says, well, ask the person, can we take him out and pet him? And they have a little area where you can, interact with, an animal there. So they put us out in this little outdoor area. And Denise is petting him, and I go and sit down. He jumps in my lap, puts a paw up on each shoulder, and right in the face, and just goes, meow. And I'm like, oh, we have to have him. And she thought I was nuts because we weren't looking for a cat. We'd never talked about a cat. She loves cats.
Yeah,
has had them before. I go, oh, this is the guy. And she goes, you're kidding, right? It took me the rest of the night to convince her that, no, really, I am not kidding. There was this immediate bond. It's like, and so when I get up to leave, thankfully I was wearing, thick jeans. I get up to leave. He jumps on my legs and with all fours around, all around my leg, trying to keep me from leaving. It was like that immediately.
Yeah.
And so, I talked Denise into it. She was like, I can't believe that you're doing this, but I'll go with you on it. Okay. And so we got him. Yeah. And we're just absolutely inseparable. I just love this guy.
Wow.
And I was trying to think of a name, so who's a cool cat? And for some reason, Cornelius Bumpus came to mind as a cool cat. And so we named him Cornelius.
Oh, that's perfect.
And so Cornelius, and so now fast forward real quickly to this winter on a really cold night, a cat is at our door and wouldn't leave. And so usually neighborhood cats that come by and look inside, and I thought, well, it's weird. If I open the door, he'll just scamper off, right? I open the door and he just looks up at me with the most pitiful, meow, like this. I'm like, oh, crap.
Here we go.
Okay. I pick him up, set him up in the garage. He's got everything he needs. We did everything imaginable to try to find somebody that's looking for him. Nobody's looking for him, and no collar, no chip.
No chip.
But it was clearly an indoor cat because he'd been declawed in the front, and he's almost completely blind. But he's the sweetest thing. So now we have two cats, and it's awesome. He's another big orangey. He's like really, really tall, big orange cat. But so the natural name for him, since he literally bumps into everything, you know where I'm going with this. He's Bumpus. So we have Cornelius and Bumpus. So it's Corny and Bumpy, and so now he has two cats, and we just love him. And we love him so much that, well, I love Corny so much. Like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, we bought him an RV so that he can come with us. So now we travel. I
remember you bought an RV, but I never got the backstory on that. Right?
I bought a motorhome so that he can come, because we left a number of times, and we leave him and have a cat sitter come by and be here a lot, for him and all that, because he's super involved with people. He wants to be around. And we just started feeling bad about leaving him. So it's like, okay, we're taking him, So now I take it on my gigs, and we take him. Denise and the cats come with, and so we got him an RV. I have to drive though, because he's got no opposable thumbs.
Right, and his eyesight's not the best.
Yeah, he can't shift like this.
Well, man, that's so cool that you've got two cats now. I never would have expected that. I wouldn't have put my money on that one, but I can see why.
I know, yeah.
You mentioned in that story about being gone a lot, and traveling, because you, prior to the pandemic, have, traveled around the world a lot. You're always on the road. How have you been able to manage through the years to balance being a father and a husband?
Well, I always feel like, when I think of it in those terms, I don't know that I've been balanced to the degree that I would like to when I start thinking about it.
Right.
Because how could I?
Yeah.
How could I? Especially in the the earlier days when I'd be 7, 8, 9 months of the year be on the road.
Gone.
The last 15 years have been much less. Just because it just is. And so, oh man, that's really a tough one. That's really a tough one, because it's definitely a trade-off. The balance, if you're thinking balance, it's imbalanced. It's not balanced. So it's like, what's the best you can do, and knowing that the way you're going to provide for the people that you love is to be gone,
right?
Because that's where the work is, that's where the money is. Especially from 2000 on, say, LA, the session seed really died off quick. With the advent of home computerized studios. So it's just a given, though. This is maybe this is it. I just have always accepted that is what I do. And so I guess I don't even literally ask anybody else to put up with it. It's just the reality.
Right.
It just is that. And so I never really have that discussion of, why I'm gone too much, because that's just what it is.
But you also, I watched you, bring up your daughter, Chelsea, when she was younger, and you were a hands-on, badass dad. You were involved.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I took it as seriously as I was able, and was tried to do everything, that I could. And, and when I'm gone, I'm gone. And boy, there was a lot of on the phone stuff, that,
sure.
But yeah, it's difficult. And then, and I don't know how much more difficult it is than being someone who leaves in the morning at the same time the kid goes to school and doesn't get back until it's, dinner time, and sees their kid for an hour a day. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how much of a great balance that is either. That's tough in its own way. Because then when I'm home, I'm 24 hours a day.
Right.
So I don't know. That would be a great psychological study. If you're going to be around your kid, say you're going to be around your kid the equivalent of
10,000 hours,
2 hours a day, say, over the whole year.
Yeah.
And then, well, more on the weekends, but a lot of times, parents aren't really necessarily around on the weekends. But I think there's a lot of people that are, if you're working a lot, you might see your kids 2 hours a day, during the week.
Right.
That might be it. And it's not exactly fun quality time because you're tired and you're eating and you're relaxing or whatever, or maybe you're still working at home. So I don't know, a couple hours a day during the week, or 24 hours a day, for weeks at a time. Boy, which is better? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, neither's probably ideal, right?
That's true.
But man, I don't know which. But what I did is, when I was around, I was, like you say, I was trying to be everything I could be all the time possible. I was trying. So to the degree I succeeded, I'm happy about that. But I know it could have been, I look back, I know it could always have been different and better, but you don't know until you've already screwed up.
Right. But it's, like our parents, as we get older, we realize that our parents, basically, as imperfect as they were doing the best they could. They were figuring it out and making it up as they went along. And I always respected the kind of dad that you were and are.
Oh, thanks.
Because you were really cared. I mean, you deeply cared about your daughter, and you would be picking her up at track, or one of the things, we used to joke about this, but I mean, you never let her call any of your friends by first name.
Yeah, I tried with that. Yeah,
at the beginning, but I mean, it's like, I remember meeting her at the house. Hi, I'm Terry, and it's like, she goes, "This is Mr. Wallman."
Yeah, right. Right.
You do not call him Terry.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a cool dad. That's old school discipline and respect and in a lot of things. I mean, you were paying attention. You definitely had a point of view.
Yeah, it was the most fun with my friend Rick, the producer, because we'd be around him, and Chelsea, when she was really little, she'd go, "Hello, Mr. Chudikoff." Rick Chudikoff, Mr. Chudikoff. I think she liked saying that one. That was fun.
Let me get to my closing questions right now, which is something I ask each of my guests. Since the show is called Making It, I'm wondering what making it means to you, both professionally and also personally, of course. And also, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Well, for me, I mean, my philosophy about making it, it's about, the satisfaction and fulfillment that you get internally from the job. It's less about external factors, be it money or stuff, which is fun, and I like all of that. But it's more important for me to be satisfied, and I get a lot of fulfillment from playing music and trying to do it at the highest level that I can, and do it with people that are also great. I mean, that's really fulfilling. So that, to me, that's really fulfilling, to be able to do that as a vocation, and that's really satisfying, because I recognize there's so many people that are very talented that don't have that. They're doing what they need to do and doing other things, and I do feel really fortunate that I can do it for a living and make a good living at it. But it's about that feeling of fulfillment. That's the making it for me is more about that. It's always been more about that. It's been less about stuff and money. And it's like, even when I talk to people about money and they say, well, how much does it cost? And I go, I don't care about money, whatever. It's like when Keb asked me to come out and says, so what do you charge? It goes, oh, I don't know. What do you, whatever you're paying the other guys, it's fine.
That's what I told Kevin too. Yeah. When he asked me to join the band.
Yeah. It's like, whatever. I don't care. It's because it's about the job, and the money always just seems to take care of itself. It comes, and it's like, okay, great. And I put it where it needs to go, and I'm fine, but the tips for success, boy, that's, I think there's that
have really driven your career.
For me.
Yeah. What's worked for you? Because you have had a career that has been pretty nonstop. It's not that there haven't been struggles, but what do you think are the qualities that you bring to the table? Yeah.
There's a few things as far as, whenever working with a new artist, I learn the music inside out. And I from early on, and even like the first time that I met up with Kenny, I knew this, and I was in my late 20s, but I already knew that I want this person to never want to hire somebody else. I want to make them feel that good, And then how do you do that? It's similar but different for everybody. How do you make somebody feel like they never, sometimes you need to be, the laid back person in the group. Sometimes because I can be gregarious, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's being really outgoing, and you have to play the situation. So knowing the music inside out, I think is great. A quick example of that is when I went auditioned for Steve Perry, because he was doing a comeback thing. I mean, it's funny to talk about comebacks that are 25 years ago. Right. It was a comeback.
It's true.
But his comeback thing was like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm auditioning for that, and he had a bunch of great players come in, and I came in and I learned, and how do you pronounce his name? Is it Bob Glaub?
Yeah.
Glaub? Just Glaub? Glaub?
Glaub.
Like German? Like Glaub? Anyway.
I'm not sure if it's German.
He did some great stuff on Steve's solo records, right?
Yeah, he's a great bass player.
So I learned that stuff note for note, tone for tone, everything about that. And he did these little subtle things in there where he'd play, he'd do it like he'd hit a harmonic like one time in the song. But it'd be a little harmonic thing. And so I had every single note nailed, and we had like 5 songs to learn, and he would just choose a couple and we played them. And I played that, and and I forget what the song was. I forget the name of it. It was a long time ago, but I remember that Steve stopped in the middle of it and turned to his guitar player, who was the guitar player in the band. They were auditioning bass and drums. He turns to the guitar player and goes, "That's the first time anybody's played that song right." And I said, "I just got that freaking gig with Steve Perry, man." And I did, and I did get the gig. But that was it. I learned the music, and
that speaks so highly of your work ethic, and also the importance of that, because I remember those auditions. That was that third encore, right?
Yeah.
Because I was next door rehearsing with Wilson Phillips.
Yes.
Back then. It was a long time ago.
I remember seeing you over there.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, we got to say hi, but we watched every major drummer and bass player would show up to audition for Steve. I even went over there not to play, but just to listen. During a break, but like the best of the best, and then people would pop in because they knew we were next door and say hi. So I remember that.
Yeah.
So you got it.
I got that. I got that gig, and I was gonna do the tour, and it got postponed.
Yeah.
And my window of opportunity. Yeah. Our window of opportunity shrunk, and all of a sudden, and Kenny's dates got moved up. Steve's got moved later, and I couldn't do the tour. But I was. He had hired me for that tour, and they were playing, and he was recording a new record, and I was really sad to have missed that, because I love Steve Perry, and I love that music. It's awesome. But that's the thing. I with as much individuality as I have in my playing, I have absolutely no problem doing exactly what that person is used to already to make them comfortable. And if the opportunity is there, I can put my personality into it. I could even change things around. But initially, like, this is great advice I got from Keb Mo. When we're talking about playing parts, he goes, "Don't surprise me." Especially when he's singing, he's like, "Don't surprise me." So so that meant a lot. But this was 25 years ago, and I played Bob Glob's stuff. I nailed it. It was perfect. He's a fantastic player. I love his playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did it. And he's, like I said, he stopped in the middle of the tune. He goes, "Well, how come nobody else is doing this right like this?"
Right.
And I brought in my gear. I brought in a big ass stack of, I had a couple of 410s and my rack and my power amps. And I was the only person that did that.
Right.
And they were asking me when I brought it in. And I said, well, we got an amp here. And I said, it's cool.
Yeah.
I wanted it to sound great. I didn't want to take a chance on the amp. Mm-hmm. And it got me the gig because it sounded perfect and I played it perfect, like it on the record. And there you go. So there's the advice. I think that I can't think of a situation where that wouldn't be a positive. Mm-hmm. To know the music and play it perfectly the way it was recorded, unless they're saying, you know what, I hate what the record sounds like, do your thing. But you have to wait for that direction. Right. You can't come in and just assume, hey man, I'm so-and-so, I'm playing this my way.
Right. That's not where you start.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a drummer coming in and saying, oh, I don't care how Steve Gadd played it. Screw that. Mm-hmm. I'm doing my thing. It's like, rethink that one. Yeah. Real quick.
Well, it's there for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So learn the music, and have respect for what that artist is doing, until they come up to you and say, I always hated that part on the record. Okay, that's a good time. But I don't think you'll ever go wrong by learning the music and knowing it and putting everything into it, because it shows respect for what they had created. Mm-hmm. And I swear every time they really appreciate it. They really appreciate it, So that's a good one. And everybody gives advice of show up on time, know your material, be an easygoing hang, understand the group, don't try to force your personality on things, But it seems like that. How do you get through to people? Because I see these. I fast forward to today, and I see these young kids that don't practice any of that philosophy. They want to come in and they want to just like free form jam on stuff. And it's like, well, no, the songs are the songs. Let's start there, but let's not start from free form jazz exploration. When we're playing, a pop tune. Right. Let's play the song, but you got to learn it, I guess. Yeah. So that's what's really worked for me is I learn the material inside and out. I know it. I don't come in with charts, that would be really rare. I will know the songs, and you call a song. And so, yeah, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And
there's no way around it. That's not just talent.
Yeah. It's putting in time and you figure it out yourself. And if you're the kind of person that says, oh, well, can you send me charts? Well, there aren't any charts. Well, gosh, I really need to have the charts. It's like, already, okay, there's one red flag.
Right.
You're not willing to do a little extra work.
You take initiative
to do this. It's like, if they don't have charts for it, you just go, okay, cool. I'll write my own. Mm-hmm. So that gives me an extra 3 hours of work this week. Okay.
Right.
Because that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it takes. And if you do that every single time, even if it's the smallest gig or the biggest opportunity of your life, because I've had these smallest, dumbest gigs turn into great things for me that you never see coming. That's the main advice that I give to people is that every show has to be your best. Every song has to be the best you've ever played it when you're playing for other people, because those people will base their entire opinion of you as a player on that moment in time. They don't care that the last week you crushed it and got standing O's after every solo. Mm-hmm. They weren't there. Every night, all those people, all they care about is right now, and they're going to judge you. They're going to judge you, and harshly. Right. Especially if it's musicians. They're going to judge you harshly. And if you're lackadaisical and none of those gigs come. I got a great gig. I don't know if you know Scott Wojon. The Wojan brothers.
Mhm.
They did, film and
Yeah, I know who they are,
soundtracks.
but I haven't met them.
I met those guys. I don't know what the hell they were doing there, but I'm doing this terrible gig with a terrible horn player. So I'm not going to name names in LA. We're playing in Crenshaw at a Chinese restaurant, doing R&B tunes, R&B covers, like right next to a liquor store that got robbed at least twice an hour.
Yeah.
This was not
between the liquor store and the fish tank, right?
Yes. So it's seriously,
yeah, picture it.
So Crenshaw, and I'm thinking, oh man, if there was ever a gig to just phone it in, there's like 4 people, and they don't care about the band. They're just eating their food, But I can't not do 100%. So I'm doing my thing. We're grooving hard. If I got a little solo, I'm going for it. I'm entertaining myself at this point, and the people in the band. We're just playing for ourselves at that point. So you can easily just not do anything. But Scott and what is his brother's name anyway? The Wojan brothers. For some reason, we're sitting there eating Chinese food, and on a break, one of them comes up to me and asks me, says, "Man, I loved what you were doing. Do you do session work? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, whatever, you hear that a lot. And I think, yeah, I do. Yeah, here's my card. And he gave me his card. And I tell you what, I made more money with those guys over the next 3 years than anybody else other than Kenny G. And mailbox money from this film stuff and commercials. And it's like all because of this jive gig that I was doing in Crenshaw for 4 people in a Chinese restaurant with a terrible sax player, and I still got a great opportunity from it. So every night, every show, every song, man, it's got to be your best. And if it's not your best, and if it's not your best, maybe you'll still get some great opportunities, but you'll never know the ones you missed.
That's such a great example of why it's important to show up and just bring it.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, because you never know. And you could do 100 gigs and 99 of them, but you just don't know which one the one is. You can't tell. You literally can't tell. The gigs you think are the best gigs are rarely anything that turns out to be a great career thing. It can be a great night, But man, the weird off-the-wall stuff, I mean, that's how I met Kenny, too. Kenny saw me at a place in Seattle, this dive blues bar in the University District, playing with it, admittedly a really good blues band, but I was doing my thing, man, and we're rocking, but we're just playing for a bunch of drunk college kids, and it's just kind of like, it's a fun hang, or we're just having fun. But yeah, I didn't even know it. He got my number from a mutual friend, and he just called me up out of the blue. Hey, hi, it's Kenny G. Wow, really? I've heard of you. I don't really know what you do, and I saw you at the Scarlet Tree, and I go, wow, when? Really? He didn't introduce himself or anything. He just showed up a little bit. So, man, you never know. So, I mean, anything can be a great opportunity. It's like with our drummer that we have, Danny Bejarano. You probably know him, an LA guy. When Bruce Carter had become very ill, and we had a number of different drummers come in, and not perfect fits, necessarily. And so I met Danny. We're doing a wedding gig for Jack Beelan in Fifth Avenue, because if people, the non-LA people, will probably be surprised that one of the best places to see top players is at a Jewish wedding,
right?
Because the guys, I got into this through Ron Powell, one of the best percussionists ever. And when we're off the road, we do these high-paying casuals, and you can make some great dough. It's like the Wayne Foster thing that I know. Right. I did that for like 12 years.
Yeah.
But this was a Fifth Avenue thing, and you're meeting a bunch of people that you don't know. You're playing together for the first time. The band leader calls, some jazz tunes we're playing, and And at the time, we had a drummer who was in Kenny's group that was great at grooving, but couldn't do any of the jazz stuff. Couldn't swing. Didn't have that feel. And we do a little bit of that in the set.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're playing with Danny, and he's back there swinging like crazy. His brushes, and he sounds freaking great, swinging. It's awesome. We're getting off on it, and then we get to a funk tune. Literally like Brick House or something, and he's laying it down. I'm like, okay, man, this guy's really, really versatile. We needed a new drummer. And Kenny just goes to Ron and I and says, guys, pick somebody. And I said, well, Danny, you up for going on the road? And it's like, so if he had, and he was really playing, and it was, he impressed me.
Right.
And I got him the gig with Kenny, and he's been there now 12 years. And that's been the best gig of his career, just like, for me. So you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You can be doing some wedding that you think, oh man, I can't believe that. Oh, this is so beneath me to play. It's like, well, you know what? If you think that, man, you're not cut out for this business, because there's no music that's beneath you.
Right.
That's
always been one of my pet peeves about wedding bands, when there's people in the bands who have an attitude like that's beneath them, like you said. Yeah. First of all, they're missing the story that you just so clearly said, which is this could be the opportunity of a lifetime for you. That could be the game changer. But the other thing is, it's really disrespectful to phone in a wedding, because that's a really important honor to be a part of somebody's day. To play a wedding or a funeral or any of those things, man, I approach that with the same intention and focus as I would a concert or a TV show or a record date. And it always makes me nuts when I see people kind of missing that point. But you're giving you're giving a real strong reason as to why people should really do their best at everything that they do. Yeah.
Because you look at it, you can look at it this way: all the people that have phoned it in from time to time, you don't know what opportunities you missed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You don't know, because people will say, "Oh, well, nothing ever came up from that." I says, "No, you don't know, because it's the person in the back of the room that was not inspired to go get your information. You don't know.
Right.
You'll never know." You don't know, Boz Scaggs was in the back and he was looking for a drummer, say, for example, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff happens all the time.
Right.
I go trolling in bars looking for young players to hire for bands.
Mm-hmm.
I do that now, because I'm amassing, lists of people to hire when I get called about, putting a band together for a touring artist. It's obviously I'm not going on the road with all these different people. I don't have the time. I can't do it. But I'll put bands together for people, and rehearse the band. I mean, Ricky Minor's the king of that in LA, but I'm doing that here in Nashville. And Good. So I'm out there. I'm sitting at the back, sipping on a Diet Coke and checking out the band. And it's not very often that I'm inspired to go get somebody's info,
right?
But when I do, those guys always get work.
Yeah,
they get something out of it, because I'm not jiving them around. It's like, I have something that I need you for,
right?
If you're available. But all these other guys that are just like, they're phoning it in, they got the attitude. So they never know that me or somebody like me or somebody far more influential than me could have helped them out.
Great advice. Let me ask you my closing question, which is, at this point of your life, Vail, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Man, that's a good one. I would tell myself to be the whole concept of know thyself, to thine self be true, that thing. That's the advice I would give. I would say, be who you are. And that doesn't mean anything negative or harmful to anyone else, but just, try to understand who you are. Who are you as a person? And, what do you want from life? And look at things that way. I wish I had done that much sooner. Because I could have saved a lot of heartache. you know, from trying to be something for someone else that I'm not. Be who you are, and be genuine, and you know, and a lot of the times that'll mean keeping quiet when you otherwise might not be, and a lot of times that means speaking up for yourself when you have also chosen to not do that. So depends on the situation, but there are times to be quiet and there are times to speak up. You know, there are plenty of times when I wasn't quiet and I wish I would have been. Plenty of times I didn't speak up when I should have. I think that'll help a person a lot, I think.
Yeah. Well, great advice. Vail, the website is vailjohnson.com, and I encourage everybody to go check out all of your albums and videos and your YouTube channel, everything that's going on with you. And it's great to see you, and it's great to
Likewise.
catch up with you. I really miss seeing you since you've moved, but I know that you're really in a great place right now in your life.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate that, Terry.
So everybody, Vail Johnson, on behalf of both of us, we thank you for spending the almost 2 hours with us. And everybody stay safe and stay inspired.
Right on.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.